Hello, everyone, and welcome to another live episode of A Yank on the Footy. I'm Craig Wessels from very snowy Sandusky, Ohio, and I'm glad that you're listening. Have a couple of you on here live at the outset today, which is fantastic. Starting to get the hang of this a little bit, and I think that this may be something that I might do on a much more regular basis because even if there aren't people that are on board, the whole flying by the seat of your pants thing is kind of fun. Now, before I dive in to some of the things I wanted to address tonight and talk about, I had a interesting situation occur over the last couple of weeks, and I haven't been able to really talk about it publicly until this point in time because it was not confirmed that this was going to be happening. I talked about this on an episode of another podcast last night, actually, that came out today. And I do want to thank Harper Pestinger from the Where Do We Begin podcast, who invited me on. He's been on my show. I've been on his. He and Lockie have been running this podcast now for closing in on a year, and they've got they've got a good thing going. And it's interesting because I think Lockie is in his early 20s. Harper, I think, is only 17 and is getting ready to start university here pretty soon. So, he's planning on studying journalism, and he does a really nice job with his podcast. So I was able to share this news yesterday on his podcast, and I wanted to do this real quickly. I got approached through an instant message on Facebook a few weeks ago about, I don't know if it's an opportunity or what have you, but somebody that I was not familiar reached out and asked if I would be interested in coming on their radio show each week during the footy season to talk a little bit about footy. And I thought this was a rather interesting proposition. Now, the part about it that it's really cool is the fact that I'm in the United States, and this radio station is 15,000 kilometers away. Now, it is one of the Triple M stations, and it's the one that's in Gippsland in southeastern Victoria. And the lady that does the morning show there had moved from Queensland, and she was a big rugby supporter, and I imagine she still is. And she's moving to the heart of footy country and decided, you know what, I need to learn a little bit more about the game of footy. And she ran across my podcast, I think possibly in an Australian podcasters group on Facebook. And she reached out, and we finally confirmed that that's going to be happening here in the next few weeks. So I'm allowed to mention it now. So I'm excited about it. It's going to be a once a week thing for only like 3 or 4 minutes, but it's something I'm looking forward to because it's maybe going to help me grow the podcast a little bit, bring in more listeners that maybe hadn't heard the podcast before or hadn't heard of it. So hopefully it's a win-win. Maybe the uniqueness of somebody from the United States talking about the national sport, if you will, in Australia might be an appealing thing. So we'll see what happens about that. So I wanted to get into that a little bit. Real quickly, if you're listening, and again, I'll share this after the live episode ends. You can sign up for the mailing list on the show notes. If you want to help out the podcast, there's a couple links on there for the Buy Me a Coffee app, as well as the Redbubble site. If you're looking to get some swag from the podcast, that sort of thing. I think I'm still over the Redbubble site. I think the only person that's bought anything from there has been me. So we'll see how that goes. But I did want to give a shout out to James White from here in the United States, who helped me out on the Buy Me a Coffee site. So James, I want to thank you very much. I know that you sent me an email today that you were getting ready to head off to work at 9 o'clock when I started this. So hope you'll enjoy this when you get home from work. Hope you have a great day at work, or a great evening at work, I should say. But it's been a fun week. I did watch all 7 of the AFLW games this weekend. We had a 4-day weekend here for school. Actually, I think technically, I guess a 5-day weekend, because we had a staff day today, and I got some of the staff day stuff done that I had to do. But then I spent the rest of the day shoveling snow, because we had about 14 inches of snow here last night, and it was still snowing slightly today, and it's supposed to be back again on Thursday. So Frode just mentioned that he watched the Bulldogs game for this weekend 7 times. So have you got every blade of grass memorized by now? That's kind of cool. It's I'm not sure you're gonna like my tip for this week, though, but it's going to be I think it's going to be a great game this week that they're playing with Melbourne. It's going to be a very close one. But yeah, the neat thing about the live thing here is I think that we're going to be able to get some of you on live to chat as well, to give some input if you would like to do that. We'll experiment with plugging in your email address and doing the invitation to bring you on board with this then. But a couple things. If you're listening, be fantastic if you'd end up enjoying. If you'd end up. Crap! I just lost my train of thought because I was reading a note here. So Liberty Rob just signed on here, and he says, "I'm only able to be on for a couple of minutes because my wife is finishing dinner. A big fan of the podcast. I live in Southern California. It's nice to hear another American's opinion." So if you're in Southern California, are you somebody that plays? Do you play with the club in San Diego with Mr. Ross, or are you up there with the Dragons with Rick Shabani? Just curious about that, because I know there's a couple clubs down in that part of the country. So we'll see what his thoughts are on that. But yeah, if you're listening, if you're enjoying the show, too old, not a shape for that. So if you listen to the interview that I had last night with Harper, that's pretty much how I described it. I said, you know what? I'll go watch the game. I'll interview people after the game. I'll cheer, but I'm shaped like the ball, so I'm not going to be playing. I'm way too old. If they're considering Gary Ablett at 35 to be ancient, well, I'm beyond ancient. I'm dust, being 57. So yeah, I appreciate you tuning in there, Liberty Rob. I really, really do thank you for tuning in. Make sure you set a plate for me for after the podcast done. I'll come have dinner with you. So it was another great weekend in the AFLW, and there were a couple games that got switched up in the last minute, unfortunately. Because they had, well, I guess they had to give in. They're doing what they have to do to play the 9-game season, and hopefully we don't have to worry about this stuff after this year. After COVID is dealt with. I saw there was a news conference going on today, or a press conference going on with the Victorian Premier. I didn't read what it was. I didn't read about it yet, but I saw some people mentioning on Twitter that the lockdowns may be going away, but maybe coming back here very shortly. I saw vaccine freezers getting rolled into South Australia today as well. So, hopefully the corner's getting turned here. Okay. But again, if you're listening and you like what you're hearing, once it's posted, share a link with your friends and family. Put a link on your social media site. It'd be great. It'd be a big help. January, I think January is I'm learning is not a great month for Footy podcasts, because people are outside, in the warmer weather outside doing things and such, and not tuning in. But February's picked up quite a bit. But yeah, getting back into the some of the things that I wanted to get into this week. A couple big stories there. I did see that the AFL had posted that they had a $22.8 million loss for the 2020 COVID season. That it cost them the league lost $22.8 million doing all the stuff with accommodating the players in the hubs and air travel and that type of thing. It just and I'm sure also just lost revenue. The fact that you had a number of games that people were not allowed to attend. And that was actually one of the neat things. And I know he didn't include it in the episode, but Harper likes to ask quizzes. I asked questions for quizzes in the end of each of his episodes. And one of the questions that he asked that didn't make the final cut was, how many rounds were there that there weren't any fans in the stands? And it turned out there were only I think 2, because they'd handled things pretty well in West Australia and South Australia and up in Queensland, that they were able to have a few people in the stands. So yeah, that was it's going to be tough for the league to recover from that, but hopefully that big loan that they got last year is going to allow them to kind of build back their finances here going forward. I did put a link to that article in the show notes. So it's like I said, almost $23 million that they lost. But nowhere near the $500 million that was predicted by some of the industry. As it's according to the article from Yahoo Sports, that some people predicted it would be $500 million that was lost. Eddie McGuire had feared that they would lose close to $1 billion if the season was canceled, and that may very well have been the case, because you had if you had no footy being played, if no games were being played, would the television networks be obligated to pay their licensing fees to carry the games? Would Channel 7 and would Fox Footy be required to pay them to have it? Would those of us who live here in the States that have the Watch AFL app, would we have gotten a refund for that, since there were no games for us to watch? Or would they have scrambled and been able to put the 5 previous seasons up on the Watch AFL app in order to kind of appease us? I know the games go back to the full season to go back to 2017, I believe. Would they have had to go back to 2012 or 2013 in order to say, you know what, we're going to go ahead and just leave the site where it is and not refund any money? But even though there were a lot of things that went wrong, it's definitely a good thing that that they only lost the $22.8 million. So it could have been a lot worse, had they been able to had they been required to shut the season down completely. They said that, they laid off 85% of their employees. I mean, that's significant. That's huge in terms of people being out of work. Because, well, one, there was not a reason for them to be there if there was not stuff for them to do. The other article that I ran across this week that I thought was really interesting was the fact that that the AFL has argued that they're now going to be putting together a trust fund for players who are suffering concussions, and that's kind of an interesting. It's kind of a follow-up of what the NFL has done, where the NFL has now identified and acknowledged. If you've ever seen the film Concussion, the Will Smith film, where the NFL for many years tries to drag its feet and not acknowledge the fact that there were health issues with some of the players like Mike Webster and Dave Duerson. Mike Webster was a center for the an offensive lineman for the Steelers, and just repeatedly banging his head thousands and thousands and thousands of times into teammates at practice or opponents during games and such. And Dave Duerson, who was just hell on wheels as a defensive back with the Bears, if I'm not mistaken, Duerson actually, very similar to what Junior Seau that played with the Chargers did, committed suicide. They both shot themselves in the chest because they wanted to ensure that their brain survived, and it allowed for it to be analyzed. So it's good that the AFL is recognizing this. This is one of the things that we got talking about rule changes and where the argument that the AFL was making rule changes just for the sake of making rule changes. But they're setting up a trust fund that over the course of establishing this fund is supposed to generate $2 billion in this fund. Now, this fund, they've said that they're planning on putting aside $25 million a year for the next 80 years. Now, sounds a little bit like a government program to me, but you'll have to let me know if they get that payment in year 80, okay? You'll have to send me a text message and let me know that. But the thought process here is to help help treat players who have been injured, who have undergone have had changes in their life because of the impact of concussions. And I think you could argue that might be the one thing that ends up being a what could be the death knell for contact sports further and further down the road. I hope it's not the case, but there's risk in everything. Okay, I shoveled snow for several hours today around my house. There's a risk in me doing that. Okay, there's a risk in me not doing that too. That's my wife not being happy that I didn't shovel the snow. But to me there's something. It's important that the league is recognizing. You know what? We've got an issue here. We need to deal with it. We're demonstrating to the players, who may then decide to, if they're concerned about the health issues of playing this game, maybe it's somebody who is a terrific, cricket and footy player. And maybe they decide to play cricket because they believe that the process or the possibility of injuries are lessened in playing cricket. Maybe different types of injuries, but maybe the type of head injuries that occur in footy might not happen there. So again, if you're interested in hopping on and you want to pop your email in the message board here, I had a couple things that said new messages pop up and then they didn't show up on the bottom of the screen there, so I'm not sure what happened there. I'm scrolling to the bottom, but yeah, if you're interested in coming on and chatting about this and giving your input, by all means, pop your email there and let's get you on here if I can make this work properly. So I don't know, I've got Frode here from Stray Dog Footy is online right now as well. So I don't know if Frode wants to hop on there and give us his insight on this as well. So we'll see if this and I actually have his email somewhere else that I could go find. There it is. I knew I had it. Okay. I just sent the invite to Frode, and we'll see if he pops on here and is able to join us. Not sure if he's online or not, but we'll see there. So yeah, we're looking at the some of the things going on in the news, and I think it's, like I said, I think it's great idea that the AFL is recognizing this and that they're planning ahead for the inevitability of the process of there being long-term injuries with some of these players, or long-term effects of some of these players that are possibly getting themselves banged up. So we'll see what happens with that. Now, a couple of other things that I ran into, and I sent a note to actually both of these authors, but about the same article, though, about the same editorial on theroar.com, and I put a link to this article as well. I'll have that in the show notes. The author Dem Panopoulos argued in his editorial that that FREO, that the Dockers women's club is setting themselves up for something special here going forward. And he argued, if you have not had a chance to watch the FREO Adelaide game from last weekend, you owe it to yourself to find that one. And it was just it was mind-boggling, watching the game, because I tipped Adelaide, quite frankly, I'd watched FREO the week before against West Coast, and yes, I think it was West Coast the previous week. They played in the rain. It was not great weather for playing, and it was a very low-scoring contest. But the Dockers just came out, and I don't know any other way to say it. That they kicked Adelaide's butt last week. Or this weekend. It was impressive, and the way they play the game is different than the way a lot of clubs play the game. They knocked off GWS by 5 goals to start out the season. They struggled against West Coast the following week, but then last week against Adelaide, it was amazing to watch them. And what was unique, and I actually went and dug into the stats a little bit, and because I read the final stat, but there you have to actually do the math to get to the data that Mr. Panopoulos was talking about in his editorial. Talked about how the Dockers were a club that just when they got control of the ball, they were trying to put the ball up the field. They were trying to go on the offense with the ball as quickly as possible. And he demonstrated that by showing the stat that the kick to handball ratio that they have, the lowest in the league is Carlton, which Carlton has a 1.1 kicks to every 1 handball. So it's almost even. It's almost a 50-50 split. West Coast has a split of 2.52 kicks per handball. And I mean, that is amazing. So, for every 5 kicks, there's 2 handballs, or for every 2 kicks, for every 2 handballs, there's 5 kicks. And looking back at that game, and I didn't watch it 7 times, I may go back and look at it again simply because of having read this. He argued that that FREO turns around and just goes on the attack as soon as they get the ball, and maybe they're successful. They get the ball inside the 50. They're able to try to get a shot on goal. Maybe they get a mark inside there, and they're able to go and try to score. Maybe it gets intercepted and turns around and comes back out. They get it back again. They're going back in again. It's a very aggressive way of playing the game, and it's kind of neat. Hello there, Art. Welcome on board there. I just wanted to go ahead and mention that if you're interested, and I see that Frode hopped back on as well. Frode, I did send you a link to your email address if you wanted to come on and chat. Art, if you'd like to do so as well. If you want to pop your email address down there in the text box down there, I can send you an invite if you want to come on and chat as well, so we can hear from you. So this could be a more than just a one-sided conversation here. But as I was saying, it was fascinating seeing that the Dockers are just bombing the ball in there, and they may not be successful all the time when they kick the ball forward. It's going to get intercepted, and the other club's going to go on the attack. They're going to get it back from them, and then they're going to go back on the attack again. But what was really interesting was that okay, and that message disappeared, it looks like. It reminded me of something, and it was interesting because it reminded me of there's a high school football team, and I believe they're in the state of Arkansas. And a couple of you are here in the States, and Frode, I know you said you had played football when you were in grammar school and high school. But this high school in Arkansas, I believe, they never punt the ball ever. Doesn't matter where they are on the field. It could be a 4th and 10 at the 5-yard line, and they're 95 yards away from a touchdown. They're 5 yards away from giving the ball back to their opponents in prime real estate position there. They never punt. They always go for it, and they always onside kick. They never kick the ball deep. They try to recover the ball at midfield and go back in and score again. and they've been very successful because I guess the coach has done the math work on this and has come to the conclusion that the odds are in his favor doing this, that more often than not, he's going to have success, being able to move the ball, and he has enough confidence in his defense to stop the opponents from, kicking the ball deep as well. So it's it's kind of a fascinating look at it. Like I said, I'm going to post the link in the show notes. Like I said, I'll post the link to this article along with the rest of them in the show notes. But it was mind-boggling. The next closest club had a ratio of 2.06 to 1, and that was West Coast. And West Coast hasn't had a whole lot of success this year, but in many ways they're trying to do the same kind of thing that Fremantle is doing. So I don't know if there's something in the water with regards to the, to being out there in Perth that's allowing this sort of thing to happen. But it just was an interesting stat. And I hadn't really, that's one of the things that I'm still, looking at and learning about as I'm going forward in this game. I understand what the stats are. I understand where to find them, but I've never really combed over them as closely as I want to yet. Now, one of the sites, and I think it's on the actual AFL website, they do put the stats on there where they talk about how a player is, elite or average or below average or, Brownlow candidate, whatever terminology they use to try to convey how well that player is playing. So, hey, looks like we've got Frode getting ready to join us here. So let's see how this works. Are you there, sir?
Can you hear me now?
I can hear you. Fantastic. All right. Cool.
All right. It took a bit to figure this all out, but I think we got it.
I'm glad that that's working. But did you get a chance to? While you were coming back online, I was talking about the FREO and Adelaide game, and how FREO they just basically kicked Adelaide's butt. I mean, and I didn't tip that to happen, but. The article that I
surprised.
The article that I'd read, where it had mentioned that that they had 2.5 kicks for every handball, which was just was mind-boggling. And there was only one other team that was over 2. So it was just kind of an interesting stat there.
Yeah, I guess that's. You're going to have to be prepared for that when you play them. They're a little bit unique that way. So
yeah, I think so. And they're who did they got this week? I've got it written down here right in front of me. Yeah, they've got Gold Coast this week. I don't think that's going to be a very pretty game. I think that's good. I think that I've already got my tips written down there. I think that's actually going to be the wide. I think that's actually the widest margin that I tipped for this week. But yeah, it's I was saying that it's been interesting to look at and to dig more deeply into the stats, because I used to be a baseball nut in terms of stats and that type of thing. Let's see, you get this other message down here at the bottom to click on. Okay, it's there. Why is it not clicking for me here? Come on now. Huh.
Bear with us. Technical difficulties.
Yeah, exactly. I've got the message bar down there. It says new message, and there it is, and it just went away. Huh. I don't know what happened there. But it's been and I mentioned this in last week, and I mentioned it in the discussion I had yesterday with Harper. And I just posted it on, I think, on Twitter as well. I said, if you're not watching the women's game right now, if you're one of those people that is sitting at home and footy is to be played by men, and and they're to be tough, and they're going to bleed all over each other, and that sort of. And okay, there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with that at all. And it can be both. There've been some. I've seen some pretty significant suplexes that have taken place, during the women's games this year, or the decleaters, if you will. where somebody's getting lifted up and just. Yeah,
probably the ugliest injury I've ever seen was in this week's Bulldogs game. If you saw Ashley Guest's eye injury, but it was pretty horrific.
Yeah, and I saw the picture the day after.
These girls are going at it for sure. It's hard, and the game has just improved so much that you don't like it, fine, but I give it a chance. If you just saw it a few years ago, give it a chance because it's improved so much and it's getting better all the time, and it's very exciting.
Absolutely. Had to throw a little clapping in there for you.
Thank you.
I agree with that. So, okay, gonna shut off now. Okay, there we go. I'm fiddling around with some of the new gadgets that are on here, but yeah, I've been so impressed by it, and and I'm hoping that that in the coming years that they're able to expand the season. Even if it means that that the women's game is being played at a different ground, because I know there's one game being played at Marvel this weekend, or scheduled to be played at Marvel this weekend, but with no fans in the stands. But as far as I know, unless that's changing between now and this weekend, and I don't know if it is or not. But I think it was the Collingwood and North Melbourne game that's being played at Marvel Stadium this weekend.
Okay.
Yeah, I think they're at Marvel. Let me look here. I've got it up on the other screen here. Well, I'm operating with two screens here right now, so I've got one machine plugged into my Chromecast, so I have my other screen up on the. They're playing at Marvel on Sunday morning our time, at 3:10. I probably won't be up for that one, but I'll watch it in the morning. Yeah, but yeah, it's been impressive. But what has been really interesting about it, though, and this actually leads me into another article that I linked to here, and this was from Nick Negroponte that he just put out. It was on SEN, where he was making the argument that the league probably has, the AFLW has probably hit a wall as far as talent goes right now, that they need to look at maybe putting there was, because I believe, if I'm not mistaken, there was, this is the year they were supposed to bring the other 4 clubs in, if I'm not mistaken.
Wasn't this COVID put that on the back burner? But I think this was the year that Port and Hawthorn and Essendon and City were possibly going to be joining the AFLW. But he was arguing in the article, and it makes sense that they've grown so quickly, and you got the teams at the bottom end of the bottom end of the ladder right now. You've got Geelong and West Coast and Gold Coast. Well, not Gold Coast isn't quite down there, but I guess they are in a way. They are. They are second from the bottom there. In Richmond, they're all 0-3, and combined their percentage would be 136 combined percentage. Extremely low percentage. They're just not. They're not. I love watching the Cats play. They're getting better each week going out there, but they don't have anybody to threaten the defense right now. They really. There's definitely a discrepancy right now as far as the top and the bottom, for sure. I just don't. Personally, the Bulldogs were the premiers in 2018, and then the expansion happened, and I would say, half of our stars, went to other teams, and it's been a long road, having those picks that we got for that pay dividends, and it's starting to now, but it's a rough thing that when expansion, just takes all your players. Yeah. But the pool is getting bigger all the time as well.
Right.
So, I wouldn't hold off too long, but I could see a little bit of what he's saying, but I would love for every club to have its own women's team.
Yeah, it would. I would too. And it's
I think it's going to happen, but he made a compelling argument in this article that that maybe you just need to take a pause for another year or two and because if I'm not mistaken, he was talking about how Sydney and Hawthorn and Essendon all have like academies going right now for their clubs. With the women's club to try to grow the game and help these young ladies learn the game and get them to the point where they're going to be ready to compete at the higher level here pretty soon, but they're not at that point yet.
I will say that the draftees coming in now seem to be at a much higher level than what they were just a couple of years ago.
Right.
Even they're this having something to work towards. We've said it many times that these young ladies they have a career vested in footy, not coming from another sport. So their skills and the way they're picking things up, from what I can see, is definitely improving year to year.
Yeah, I agree with you. And you really watched that game 7 times?
I watched it live and then again the next day, and then I showed it to some guys at work.
Okay, well, there you go.
Probably, I know I watched it again today. I once or twice more in there, so 7 might be a bit much, but close. Are you
getting some additional? And I'm sure this has already been happening. As much as you've been a fan, have you got people where you work that have begun showing interest as well? Have you got some actual footy fans at work?
Absolutely. I have a couple buddies who've become sideline members of the Bulldogs, and also and they follow it probably not as much closely as I do, but they often ask me questions. And there's a couple of new guys that are picking up a little bit, and they seem to enjoy it quite a bit. So yeah, we watched actually round 2 and 3 at work the other day. So it was a slow day, so it worked out well.
Well, that's a good thing.
Yeah.
You just have like a Chromecast that you run it through like a computer then, and
I just had my little iPad. I got to watch the AFL app there, and
good deal.
They call it a dongle, and you hook that up, and there you go. Here at home, I actually I bought a cheap little tablet just to cast to watch AFL onto my TVs here at home. So
I've been I'm at the point right now where we have they got us Chromebooks a couple years ago for school. We use predominantly MacBooks still, but the kids are using Chromebooks, so they got one for us as well, so we can kind of look at the apps that they have and construct assignments that we know are going to work on their equipment, even though the MacBooks are still much more powerful in terms of what we need them to be able to do as teachers. So I have one of the dongles. That's what I got plugged in right now. I picked up one of the dongles for the Chromebook that I have plugged into an HDMI, and I've got I have my computer screen up on my, I don't know how big the television is. It's not a huge one. It's like a 40-inch one. It's not one of those big, massive wall-sized ones or anything like that. But it makes it a little easier to read the computer screen in front of me then. So that's after I've been sitting, after shoveling snow all day today and getting I don't know why these new messages are not coming through. I have one that's there. It says there's a new one, but it's not reloading or reactivating there for me. Now it's gone. I don't know what's happening there with that. So that's a little frustrating. But yes,
it's a bit of a learning process.
Well, it's normally I just scroll to the bottom and then the new message shows up, and they've not even been doing that. It's like I can scroll to the top, and scrolling back to the bottom isn't working. So I'm not sure what's happening with that there. Yeah. So I think that they're probably going to end up having to wait a year or two, unless they they're able to bring in finding another handful of Danny Marshalls here from the U.S. But again, it's the situation there though is that it's a part-time job. It's not something that's necessarily paying a livable wage to go live on the other side of the planet.
Right.
So they have, I think, and I'm assuming that the clubs are helping, with, because there are 18 young ladies from Ireland that are playing this year in the comp. I think it's 18.
Well, yeah.
Are they helping to find them employment here, or are they giving them a stipend, paying for their housing and that sort of thing,
probably whole other set of visas involved with that too.
So. Well, that's a good point too. Well, Rick was able to go work there as well. So a couple of years ago. So I'm sure they've got, that the different clubs have people that working in their front offices who are experts on that sort of thing, who know how to, grease the wheels or cut through the red tape. I guess cutting through the red tape is better than greasing the wheels, because that sounds like bribery. So I don't know if they grease the wheels there. I don't know if they grease the wheels there or not, but I imagine it probably does happen though. So.
Well, it wasn't all that long ago that the men were fully paid either. Again, going back to the Bulldogs, they used to be called the Bone Mill Fellows, because back in the day they all worked over at the slaughterhouse, where they would grind up the bones for industrial use. So the team would
yummy
and go over and play footy.
Yeah.
So, but that was a long time ago. But even just a few decades ago, I don't believe there was a whole lot of, except for a few stars, that was their sole income. So.
Right. Well, that used to be the way.
Too.
Yeah. I mean, that was the way. With the NFL, the NBA, Major League Baseball. Players had winter jobs or summer jobs. They had other things that they were doing.
Right.
So it wasn't always a, nowadays it's, you've got, some players that are, getting paid a lifetime of salary, for a common person. And I'm not begrudging them at all on that. If they, if somebody can, if Trevor Bauer can get the Los Angeles Dodgers to pay him, I think, what was it? $40 million this year? $40 million to play to throw baseball in hopefully 40 starts. So basically $1 million a start. Probably a little more than that, because I don't think you'll start 40 games. It's if you could get somebody to do that for you, more power to you. It's but that gets to that's a whole different thing with the salary cap with baseball. That there needs because right now he's getting paid more than the team he played for 2 years ago, than their entire team, which is just it's crazy. It's and that's one of the other reasons why I'm moving every day a little bit closer to being just a footy fan, because the huge disparity in finances in baseball. That's one of the things I can handle about the NFL. Everybody is getting, every team can pay the same amount of money. Green Bay, who has 130,000 people in their city, gets to pay the same amount of money for their team as the New York Giants. They can't pay a nickel more in New York than the Packers can. So to me, that the whole level playing field is.
Well, like you pointed out on your podcast, a really insightful episode on how the NBA helped the AFL, or I guess it was VFL at that time, set up their pay structure and their salary caps and everything. Because before then, it was very much, some teams had money, some teams, had to sell their players to survive. So or I should say clubs, not teams, because it's the club culture is so strong. There's not a rich guy cutting checks. There's the members and the reality of the situation. So now these days it's much more a level playing field. But people were, I don't remember the exact number, but people were saying, how Buddy was getting $10 million for 7 years was an outrageous amount, but when you look at other numbers, especially over here, that's not, so,
you look at the worst player on, the worst player, the rookie, the most god-awful player on the baseball team, the rookie minimum, I believe now in Major League Baseball, around $450,000.
Yeah, that's
I'm just going to go on record.
Midfielder.
Yeah, exactly.
You know? So, yeah,
I'm sorry for $450,000. Yeah, I think I would be okay with four times a game or 4 times a day for 162 days. Number of at bats, number of games. I'd be okay with you just coming out with a ball peen hammer and pounding me on the foot with it. Just come hit me on the foot with it. I don't even need to play. I'd be content with doing that. I mean, it's just crazy money, and But again, I don't begrudge that. If the TV contracts are going to pay that amount of money to clubs to broadcast their games, which don't get me started on that because the streaming services right now are not carrying a lot of the Major League Baseball, NBA basketball because one of the companies, Sinclair, has decided to not, they've not been be able to work out a deal with like Hulu Live and with YouTube TV. So, even if I want to watch an Indians game this year, I don't have access to it unless I go back to my cable channel or my cable company here in town, which I will not do. I like the idea of being able to say, yep, I want to go ahead and have this channel this month. And if I want to cancel that, I can go ahead and get rid of this. I can go to something else. I'm not locked into anything. It's been wonderful as far as that goes. I have more stuff to watch on television.
The Watch AFL app is pretty much my life,
Yeah.
That's a lot of times I leave it on 24/7, just playing in the background. So
telling Harper when I was talking to him last night that one of the things that one of the channels that I tend to watch more than anything, and my wife was a little reluctant to make the move to streaming a few years ago. But we got it figured out, and she's very happy with it now. She's got everything that she wants to have on there, and a lot of other things as well. But so we have the YouTube TV, but then we also have the one that's called Philo, because it has 2 or 3 that were must-have channels for her. Those were deal breakers if we didn't have those, which I think were Lifetime and Bravo, that type of stuff. And if we didn't have those, we weren't going to change. We weren't going to get rid of streaming. Or we weren't going to go to streaming a couple of years ago. So we bit the bullet on that. But the one I watch the most is that Acorn TV, which has, it's all British, Australian, New Zealand TV shows. It's been, so I've kind of immersed myself in, watching Jack Irish, which is a Guy Pearce TV series, and Mystery Road, which is it's kind of like what's the Matthew McConaughey show that was on HBO a couple years ago? Was it True Detective? Yeah, True Detective. Yeah, okay. It's a lot like that. It's a really gritty cop show, but it's set up in the northern part of West Australia, where the vast majority of the cast is Aboriginal, and it's just interesting to see the culture, because they just embrace the culture in this series. It's really neat to see, because it's something that that I'm never going to experience or see here.
I would definitely have to check that out. That sounds fascinating. Yeah, I've been listening to some Australian histories podcasts lately, and just trying to pick up a little bit here and there just to get more immersed in the culture as well. And that sounds like a lot of fun.
I'll send you a couple of the links, because there's a couple that I've been listening to that are kind of interesting.
Yeah.
But
I cut the cord myself recently.
Yeah, the Acorn is, I think, if you pay for the year, it's like $4.99 a month for the year. But if you do it by month, it's $5.99 a month. So, and it's got hundreds and hundreds of different shows on there, and they update all the time. They've got a bunch of their own original shows on there. And they have a few programs that are coming out of like Sweden and Denmark, and I'm not sure if there are any Norwegian shows on there. But I know there's at least one Swedish show on there.
I'll definitely check it out.
Yeah, but it is fun. But so have you? Let's run through the tips for this week and see who's tipping what. We'll kind of go. You want to go through every other game here, and I'll take one. You take one.
Sure.
Okay. Well, I mean, I have mine all written down here, but I've got I have to tip against the Cats. They're playing St. Kilda, and like I said, they're not until they can score more points, which is
Yeah.
Of course, that's the case. They've got to.
The Cats. I don't know if I would tip them. The Cats this might be their week. I don't know. But I'm not. I don't think I'm ready.
I hope you're right, but I don't think they're gonna. I don't think they're gonna be able to score enough points. St. Kilda's been able to put some points on the board. We'll see what happens. But I actually tipped. I tipped them by I think 5 points, 6 points, something like that. Carleton and Richmond. Yeah, Richmond did some good things last week. They did some things all right last week, but they're still scuffling as well. But I think Carleton's going to win that one by like a goal and a half. I don't know.
I would have to agree. I mean, Richmond's surely going to get there sooner rather than later, I think. But Carleton sort of started to put the pieces together too.
Yeah.
So I think I would go with Carleton as well.
Yep. Art, if you're still on there, sir, by all means, chime in if you've got any input on this. I'd love to, get your thoughts on here. So feel free to hop on there. Fremantle and Gold Coast. This is this to me. This is the Harlem Globetrotters and the Washington Generals right here. This is
the Generals have won once or twice, haven't they? In the span of the series, but I don't think it's happening this week.
I don't. I think I put on there. I said 20 points, but I think that it could be higher than that. I mean, they were scary the other day. I mean, they were hitting hard. And you mentioned the young lady from the Bulldogs with the eye injury. Did you see her post on Instagram the next day?
Yeah,
after they drained it. That was
feeling cute. Yeah.
That was ugly afterwards. Yeah. Now
even my coworkers were used to seeing quite a bit of trauma. We all kind of went, ooh, when we saw that. So
I bet. Yeah, and I saw you guys got an award recently too. You're gonna talk about that, and when you get out there again to do that. But the Roos and Collingwood
should be a good game.
That should be a good one. Yeah, it should be. Collingwood is they've had two games that were not terribly tough the last couple of weeks. They've not had a terribly challenging fixture. I mean, they played the Cats, and then they played what was it last week? They played Richmond, but Richmond played a decent second half. I mean, it was only a 17-point difference.
Mm.
It's they played Carleton round one if I remember correctly. Yeah, they beat Carleton round one. And I think this is gonna be a good game. I do think that North is going to bounce back because I didn't think they were going to win the. I didn't think that the D's were going to knock them off last week. I mean, that was an impressive game also. So it's I think that that North is probably gonna take that one. Now I did see that their ruck was banged up. I saw her name, number 60. I can't think of her name right now, but that she showed up on an injury list today. I saw somewhere that was the case. And then Sharney, it's Larder. She got married this summer, I guess. It's not Leighton anymore because she didn't play last week either.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I didn't know that, but I don't know. The North still has a lot of firepower.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I have to pause here for just a second because we have somebody that just joined us here, and this is one of the bigwigs in the USAFL, from the RVA Lions, and welcome, Mr. Green, to the podcast there, sir. If you'd want to come on and chat, if you could drop your email address in the message box there, I can send you a quick link if you'd want to come on there, sir. We've just been going over our tips for this week in the AFLW because we've been going through some things here for the last 45 minutes or so. But thrilled to have you on there. But yeah, we're so North and Collingwood thinks it's gonna be a good game. Brisbane and Adelaide, it's gonna be, I think, another good one as well. You've got
to go against Aaron Phillips ever, but the Lions are, they seem like they got their act together. So
and you know what though, you go back, I was, and it's going to come up here in just a minute. I was impressed by West Coast in that first quarter of that game because they came out firing, and as the people that were announcing the game said, it seemed as though they kind of just ran out of gas. It's like they were a 100-yard sprinter that got entered into the 1,600-meter run, and they got out to that big lead real quickly and just couldn't maintain it. So it was impressive what Brisbane did in the second half of that game. And I'm looking at them now as, you've got 7 teams, maybe 8 teams right now that could possibly win the premiership. Yes, I think this is a really, really, by the time it's going to be all said and done, it's going to be a very tightly packed list, or ladder, I should say. Let me see if I can get the message to show up here. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, we got the flexing emoji with the lion head and the smiley face. I think it's a smiley face there. Yep. From the Lions there in Virginia. Absolutely. Yeah. I think Brisbane's going to be, one of those teams to beat. We have to be honest though. It's been it's a little disappointing. They did lose 255 points off of their percentage last week. I mean, what kind of team does that? They dropped 250. Of course, they're still at 502, which is just mind-boggling. I mean, what was it last week? I think I actually said that on the episode last week that they were their percentage was 757. I said their percentage was the aircraft that they were going to fly to their next game on. That's just mind-boggling, and that kind of reinforces what we were saying earlier. About the fact that the difference between the haves and the have-nots right now is so wide, is so varied, that maybe that pause button needs to be hit in order to allow some of those younger players to bubble up and be able to contribute. So we'll see what happens with that then. But yeah, so you're saying you don't think you can. You don't think you can pick against Aaron Phillips? Are you going to go with Brisbane on that one?
It's hard for me to go against Aaron. She's just superhuman.
And this one's being played in Adelaide, if I'm not mistaken. That Hickey Park is in Adelaide, is it not? I can say. Or no, you know what? I think that one's actually in Brisbane. Yeah, that's it.
It looks like it's in Brisbane here. Yeah.
Hickey Park, I think, is in Brisbane. Okay, I'm still learning the names of the smaller. They're playing one at Marvel this week, so that helps me out a lot. Knowing that that there's a game being played at a stadium that I know where that one is. I can even find that one on a map. The other ones, not so much. The other ones, I'm still learning about those.
Yeah.
Okay,
I'm going to go with the Lions. Yeah.
Okay, now I'm gonna go to the last game, and then I'm going to come back to one.
Okay.
GWS and West Coast. GWS and West Coast are playing this weekend.
Yeah.
And you know,
it's actually kind of hard for me to pick this one, actually.
I went ahead. I tipped West Coast in this one. I said, you know what? If they could figure out how to extend what they did in the first quarter against Brisbane over 2 or even 3 quarters, I think they could win it. Because, you know, GWS has only scored 61 points in 3 games. They're not exactly lighting up the scoreboard.
Yeah, I think I would have to agree with you. I think West Coast will pull it out, but again, it is a Giants home game, so but I'll probably have to tip the Eagles on that one.
Yeah, I went with the Eagles on this one as well. So I think it's going to be, it's going to be a fun game to watch. I mean, I don't think there's a real clunker this week. Other than, you could argue the Geelong game, which is, it's going to be close because St. Kilda's not exactly lighting up either. But then, Fremantle and Gold Coast is going to be, I think it's going to be ugly. I think Fremantle can win that one by, 4 maybe 5 goals. But that gets us
any given Sunday or whatever day it is. But
exactly. Yes, exactly. Yeah. That brings us to the second to last game of the weekend, which I'm listing here as the last game of the weekend. And that is your Western Bulldogs and the Melbourne Demons. So,
yeah, I think the Demons are probably going to be one of the harder teams to deal with this year. But I can't ever tip against my doggies, but I'm going to tip that it being a home at Wynn Oval, and just the way that Berkey has conditioned them with all the running they've been doing since long before the season started. I'm looking for another late fourth quarter surge, so I think the doggies can definitely win at home here.
Okay, good deal. Yeah, I said that. The first thing I wrote down here, I said, if there's ever a game that I wanted a tip to be a draw, this would be it. Because I typed that in my show notes here. That's what I jotted that down here in my notes for tonight. I said I think it's a great matchup. I tipped Melbourne by 4, and I said I won't be shocked if it goes the other way. I think this one's a really close game, and it should be.
It definitely should be.
And it's
you never know what's going to happen on any given day, who shows up, or this flu bug runs through the team or whatever. Who knows? But
let's hope it's only the flu bug.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. These days, who knows? But
let's not talk about bugs and viruses and that sort of thing. Does
anybody get the regular cold and flu anymore? Everybody's so careful. I haven't been sick in a year, and usually I get a cold every 3-4 months.
I had several people that work in my hallway where I teach that were out for some reason over the last several months since the school year began. There, I'm skirting the issue very well there. Mm-hmm. And I joked with people because they were all out at the same time, and I joked with people and I said, "I bet you didn't have me in the last man standing pool." I said I know that you were thinking, nah, he's the first one to go. He's gonna be out, and here I am. I haven't taken a sick day in 3 years. I don't. Yeah. Well, we get 2.5 sick days assigned to us every month. So I have the maximum that I'm allowed to have. I get to carry 250 of them. So at this point in time right now, I get 2.5 new sick days, and they take 2.5 sick days away from me. So mine kind of just stays balance there. And I've kind of joked. I said, you know what? I've been doing this for 27 years now. I might end up having to start use these sick days here pretty soon. So, I'm glad I have them. I was able to donate a week's worth to one of my coworkers who had some things going on where they had used up all of their sick days. So I was glad to be able to help them out with that. They allowed us to do that sort of thing, to donate our sick days to somebody else. So, because I figured, you know what, I was going to lose them. So,
Right.
yeah. So, I think this is going to be another great week of games. I think there are 4 or 5 really close contests here that could go either way.
And I don't know if you noticed, like, a lot of them are actually at rather convenient viewing times for us Americans too.
Yeah, that's true. We've got what the
11
Cats
o'clock games, 9 o'clock game even.
There's 2 11 o'clock games. There's the Brisbane and Adelaide game is at 9:10 p.m. And if you're listening to this here in the States and you're not watching this game, well, first of all, I'm thrilled that you discovered the podcast because you're obviously new to the game. If you're just discovering the podcast now, or you're discovering footy now, we're talking about the women's competition. The men's games begin here in a couple of weeks. But at this point in time, the AFLW website is actually carrying the video of the games live. So you can actually log right onto the website and watch the games live. And actually after the fact, then they've been posting the games replays by quarter. So if you wanted to go back in and just watch the third quarter of the Brisbane Adelaide game after this weekend, you could do that. So,
is that the women's footy website or?
Yeah, well, it's if you go on the regular AFL site, they have it's just like women's. I think it's women's.afl, I think. But if you go on the AFL.com.au site, and it has the logos for all the clubs on there, on the far right hand side, it has the women's logo on there. You click on there, and it'll open up for you, and you go into the matches, and you can go in and watch all the games. Like right now, I'm looking at. Right now they've got. I'm looking at the Brisbane and West Coast game from last Monday, and it's got the watch replay button on there. So, and I made this suggestion to several of my friends, here in Ohio that who I've been trying to convince to watch the game. And I've sent them links to the replays. I said, I know you're not going to want to stay up till 1 o'clock in the morning or 3 o'clock in the morning to watch a game that is completely new to you. I said, but here's where you can watch the replays. If there's no football on, if you're not a college basketball fan, I don't watch college basketball. I don't know what other activities you might be watching at this point in time, but here's something that's really competitive, and it's been something it's gone really well. So I think that that more and more people should know that that's out there for them to check out for free. So it's kind of cool that they're doing that right now, because I think it's going to help. It's going to help to market the product. And like I said, there are I think there are a lot of footy purists who are just dead set against women playing the game. And I think if they now if they actually sat down and watched even a replay of one of these competitive games, one of these these games that was I think it was a 60-51 matchup not that long ago. Melbourne and North last week. That was a hell of a game. It was a great contest, regardless of the names of the players, whether it was, Isabel or Steve playing the game. It was a hell of a game.
Right. I mean, I would argue that, footy purists probably hate a lot of what's going on in the men's game these days too.
So. Well, that's true too. Yes. Yeah, there you go. That's true.
But it definitely is enjoyable, and it's just getting better all the time. And yeah. I'm just as excited about a women's win as I am the men's. I really am.
Yeah, and I think that I think that they've done a good job strategically by having. Because I think the result would be different if the women's comp began right after the men's grand final, instead of leading up to the men's season. Because I think that it's, if nothing else, it's kind of like an appetizer. It's whetting the palate of footy fans. It's getting people excited about the men's competition coming along, and then they're going to realize also, oh, this is pretty darned okay here. I can watch this. I can support this club. I can get a membership for this club. It's and support these young ladies that are playing this game in my club's colors. Because I think if it was after the grand final, that's when cricket is just firing up at that point in time, if I'm not mistaken. I think they would have a real difficult time gaining a lot of traction because people would be like, the grand final is over. The season's done. And they go, no, wait, we have more footy. And, no, wait, the grand final just happened. And they wouldn't, now they get a chance to, they get the chance to talk about men's training. Men's training, here's what's going on. And, oh, by the way, women are playing now as well. Check them out. So I think I don't know if they ever thought about doing it right afterwards, but I think it's better to have it at the start of the season as opposed to the end. I don't know.
I agree. Yeah. If it was up to me selfishly, I would have them going at the same time. So that if I ever made a trip back to Australia, I could watch both the men and the women play. But
good point.
Yeah. But as far as it's nice filling the year with more footy for sure.
Well, what do you think about your the possibility of you like scheduling a trip? Do you think you would ever schedule a trip just to go watch the women's game?
It's not outside the realm of possibility.
Yeah.
Right now, I'm hoping to go this year. I've taken the time off of work, but with COVID, that was just if by some miracle, this COVID thing is under control.
Right.
Around 15, 16 of the men's, but so I pushed it out a little bit. But I would definitely love to go see a women's game in person. Absolutely.
Yeah, I'm hoping you get a chance to do that. I'm hoping you get a chance to get back over there this year.
Me too. But
yeah, exactly.
As more lockdowns come, the less likely it looks.
Well, that's true. Yes, that's true.
Yeah.
I think we dug into absolutely everything that I wanted to get into this week, and it's I want to thank you for popping in. I want to thank
thanks for the invite.
Art for being on here. Art, you might have tried to send me a couple messages there. I don't know why they didn't. I wasn't able to get him to click on there. Liberty Rob, I hope you had a great dinner. Again, thanks to Jim White. It's Jim, wasn't it? It wasn't. Yeah, it was Jim. James White. That I mentioned earlier. For helping out there, Mr. Green from the Lions there in Virginia. Thanks for coming on. I appreciate that. I'm glad to have you here. See somebody by the name of Cyberstein came in the studio as well. So thank you for coming in and checking out the show as well. We've been going now for a little over an hour, and I'm going to wrap this up and record the closing of the episode and try to get it published this evening before I head off to bed. I'd mentioned earlier we had about 14 inches of snow overnight last night, so I don't know how well they've got the roads all cleared off. My street's clear, so I teach in a more of a rural district, so depends on how well they've done getting the country roads cleaned off as to whether the buses could get there. So, hey folks, thanks for coming on. I like the idea of doing the live broadcast or the live podcast to just hopefully get a chance to talk to some people. It's great that Frode could come on here. I'm hoping we can get some other folks on as well as we go forward here. My little message button was acting up here because Mr. Green, a couple of years we're showing up here. I got the thumbs up there at the end, but it's I think this is just a neat tool to be able to utilize and try to talk with folks. And I hope you'll come back. I hope you'll tell your friends about it. Like I said, this is going to get published as an episode here in just a second, so it's not going to just disappear where only 3 or 4 people or 6 people or whatever heard it. Hopefully some other folks will check in on it as well. And hey, folks, have a great Tuesday evening. Okay? Stay safe. Be well. Call your friends. Check in on them. If you happen to be in Australia and you're listening, we're thinking about you here, although you guys are, almost completely out of the woods as far as COVID's going. I know you're, Victoria's still back in a lockdown, and we're we're still muddling along here, and it sounds like things are actually going pretty well where you live, Frode, in the great grand scheme of things.
We can only hope. It seems to have gotten better, but we'll see. I mean, vaccines are rolling out, so hopefully that has some effect.
Supposedly we're going to be getting ours here, as a teacher, because we've been back in the classroom since the beginning of September. We've been there pretty much all year long. We missed like the first week and a half of school while we were getting some things set up, and there've been a few hiccups, but for the most part, it's gone pretty well this year. There've been a few projects and such that I've had to scrap because it involves the kids moving around too much in the room and engaging with one another a little too closely. But beyond that, it's been a pretty typical year, other than the fact that I'm only going to be able to recognize half of the kids' faces next year when I forget their names, and I'll tell them, I recognize your forehead, but I don't know who you are. So I actually did that with the seating chart at the beginning of the year. When I got the seating chart with the kids' pictures, I took a Sharpie and covered up the bottom half of their faces, because I figured that's all I'm going to see is the top of their nose and their eyes. So that I might be able to figure out who they are that way. So, yep. Well, folks, hey, have a great evening. I'm going to go ahead and work on getting this edited it out there this evening. So have a wonderful Tuesday night, everybody. And thanks for tuning in. Take it easy. I want to take a moment and thank everybody that tuned in for the live broadcast. I know there were 6 or 7 of you that tuned in. Mr. Green from over there in Richmond with the RVA Lions, thanks for tuning in. Hope to get you on to talk during a subsequent episode or for an actual interview for the podcast. Would love to have you on to talk some footy, to pick your brain. Frode, thanks for coming on and chatting with me. It's great to always talk to you. It's wonderful to have somebody on that has a similar set of thoughts as far as the game is concerned, who came to the game, a little bit later in life and just has absolutely fallen head and over heels in love with it as well. So it's great to get your insights. Great to talk to you about the game. Ladies and gentlemen, don't forget that if you'd like to sign up for the mailing list so that you get each episode delivered to you first, there's a link to a short form in the show notes. If you'd like to sign up, I'll get you added onto the list. I added somebody new just this morning, so this episode will go out to them directly after it gets published. Make sure you check out the link to the podcast storefront if you'd like to help out there, or if you want to take a look at the Buy Me a Coffee app there, and you maybe want to help out the podcast there as well. Would greatly appreciate it. Again, working on trying to upgrade some equipment and some software. Hoping to get a standalone webpage for the podcast as well. Again, if you've got an idea for a show topic, by all means, shoot me an email. You can reach me at yankonthefooty@gmail.com. Shoot me a DM on Twitter. Send me a message, an IM on Instagram. Or a message on Instagram or an IM on Facebook. You can reach out to me on the A Yank on the Footy page on Facebook as well. And remember, while you can find all the episodes at ayankonthefooty.podbean.com, it's also on all of the podcast hosting sites as well. I actually just, and I don't know if it's actually gone live there or not, I just sent my RSS feed for the podcast out to a podcast host that is out of the country of India. And it is one of the biggest podcast hosts in terms of putting the content out there, like Apple Podcasts, like Spotify, that sort of thing. It's one of the biggest ones in the world. So I was really excited to locate that one. I've actually been working behind the scenes at preparing an interview with a couple of gentlemen who were involved with AFL India and have some insight in terms of how that group of teams got established about a decade ago. So hoping to be able to sit down and talk with them here in the next week or two, and looking forward to speaking with them, learning a little bit more about the game in India. So I think that's going to be terrific. Remember, you can also find the podcast on my YouTube channel. Just look for my name on YouTube, Craig Wessels. And, now that you've listened, I hope you'll take a minute and maybe hop over to Apple Podcasts and leave me a review. Let me know what you think about the podcast. Love to hear your thoughts. If you like it, give me a 5-star if I've earned it. Otherwise, shoot me an email. Let me know what I could work on. Now, tonight I know there was a little bit of rambling. We're still working on, I do not have a mouse in my pocket. I'm still working on, hammering out some of the software that Podbean offers for me to use to do these live broadcasts. I was able to get Frode on there live tonight. I'm hoping to be able to bring a number of people on live. There's an opportunity for that to happen because I could bring on, it looks like 7 or 8 people. I don't know if they can all be there at one time, but I could have a multitude of people on the podcast, and I'd love to be able to engage with people to talk about the topics that are happening, on a regular basis, the daily news, if you will, to get people's input. Because, we can talk about the results of the games and the upcoming games and project what's going to happen or reflect back on the games, but, would have been great to be able to do this and get some insight from, Magpie supporters in terms of, the resignation of Eddie McGuire, or, looking at just how AFLW fans are looking at the game and what their thoughts are on it and how pleased they have to be about the way the game is being played this year. So, again, you can reach me at ayankonthefooty@gmail.com. Again, on Twitter at @yank_on, Facebook and Instagram at @yankonthefooty. Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank you for tuning in. I want to thank you for listening. Again, those of you who came on live today and sat in on the show, thanks so very much for that. I truly appreciate it. And while we're fans of our teams, deep down we're fans of a game that we all love, and that's the game of footy. And ladies and gentlemen, thanks so much for listening. I ask that you please consider sharing a link to this episode or your favorite episode. Maybe it's one of the interviews that I've done. Frode mentioned an episode from early last year where I talked about how the NBA helped the VFL to stabilize their finances and bring in the salary cap that we have today, when you had a lot of clubs where there were haves and have-nots, if you will. Okay? And ladies and gentlemen, as always, may your dribble kick never, ever hit the post. I'll catch you later. Ladies and gentlemen, this has been a live episode of A Yank on the Footy, recorded the evening of February the 16th of 2021. Don't forget that you can reach me at yank_ on Twitter or to yankonthefooty@gmail.com, and you can find me on Instagram and on Facebook at A Yank on the Footy. Again, ladies and gentlemen, thanks for listening, and please share a link to the podcast on your social media sites. And until next time, goodbye.